Awesome. Okay, well, look, let's kick off with this. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've got Ariel Rubin. That's how you pronounce your name, right?
Yeah, of course.
Webby award-winning content creator, digital strategist, loads of experience across multiple continents as well: USA, Switzerland, Turkey, and Sudan. I think we've found somewhere.
Yeah.
And obviously, at the moment, you're head of content at Air and have been instrumental in launching a bunch of content strategies and boosting the company's growth and industry presence. So, Dojo Digest is all about trying to identify or trying to understand who people are, what their journey is. I personally believe that everybody's journey has had a moment of chaos at some point, somewhere. No journey is like a straight line. So my first question, my intro for you is, I want you to take us back on what the fuck moment that shaped who you are today.
Wow. What's one what the fuck moment that shaped who I am? Um, there's so many. There's a lot. I think that I mean, like, I guess speaking in terms of like how I work, is this more like professionally or like what shaped where I am as a human being or anything?
Anything, honestly.
I've been working for a long time in creative work. I'm like from the time where I started like the first Twitter handle for the UN in Sudan, like 15 years ago or something stupid. And I think that I've been around long enough now where I'm like, I was like the young guy who was like doing edgy things like starting a Twitter account. And now I'm like an old man working in the same space. I'm like 40 now. I have children. Like, so it's humbling about that for me always. But I guess a moment, what the fuck moment for me was, I think it was probably that I realized that you can kind of do anything if you just do anything. And I've had a career that spanned from, I remember being in Ramadi, Iraq, doing a project with the International Red Cross, handing out digital cameras, disposable cameras to a school of young women, and basically with a photographer from Magnum and all this stuff. And it was also like very scary to be in Ramadi. It wasn't like the nicest place I've ever been, but it was also quite beautiful and interesting. And I think like just realizing that you could do that. And then, 3 years later, I was working at a gas station chain called Come and Go, doing their social media and getting it into places like Adweek and The Advocate and stuff like that, and turning it into something. And then, a year later, 2 years later, I was at a SaaS company trying to figure that out. And I think like the thing for me has always been that the through line is that you can kind of do whatever if you just do it and believe that you can do it. And that ultimately the weird thing is that none of these things are actually that different. Like whether you're working in Iraq or Iowa, which have a lot more in common than you might think, but also, or in New York or Toronto in SaaS, like you're trying to get people's attention. And so many people still, even today, don't feel like they have to earn people's attention. They think they can like assault them with really boring ads, or like that they need to be fed some like diet of like just kind of pabulum in order to like will them through some fucked up funnel. And like, I don't know, it sounds like we have a similar sensibility in terms of like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And there are many different ways to reach people, but certainly maybe them being entertained by you might be a good start. So I don't know if that was a good answer or a bad one, but that's where my head was.
Look, I mean, I love it. The point I was sort of communicating is everybody has a different journey, different route, and that kind of
Totally.
that amplifies the point, I think. Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about how to communicate. I do believe, we've sat in this B2B SaaS space for a long time, not forever, but it's where we are and have been for the last 5 years. And the main thing we try to get across is like, yeah, you're in B2B and you're selling to a business, but the people buying are people. And ultimately the people using the software or the product, whatever it might be, are people. People like are not companies. So we need to change the narrative, like these corporate scripts, the jargon, the like fact pushing. And like, as you say, the funnels and everything, like, people switch off and people don't engage. And now we live in this time where there's so much content, and it's great to some extent that anybody can create content and share it. Equally, there's a lot of people that probably shouldn't. It's not great. The market is saturated, but people now, you got to, as you said it, you nailed it. You got to earn people's attention. You got to earn the right for their content to be in front of you. So let's see where we go with this. So look, my first sort of thing I wanted to bring up is more around focusing on your role now, right? So as head of content, and I've kind of pulled some bits from online, so you might need to correct some of this. But to summarize, it looks from the outset that you've kind of come in, you've cut 90% of the marketing budget at Air. You've doubled down on creativity, and the result, whether it's totally direct or not, who knows, but the result is tripled revenue in 18 months.
I'm going to claim it.
Fine. That doesn't sound like a pivot. That's a play. So I want to know what gave you the conviction to go all in, and how did you make it work?
Well, I have to start by saying that it wasn't necessarily my decision, but rather my boss's decision. And I'm very fortunate that he made that decision because it meant I got to keep my job, which was ultimately that Shane, who is the co-founder and CEO there, really felt passionately then and feels passionately today. And you can see that up through our most recent campaign, that creative is a moat and brand is really important for B2B SaaS. And I think that a lot of brands have caught up to that. I think a lot of B2B SaaS brands today believe that now, actually, in particular in an era of twin threats of a looming recession and just sort of an AI onslaught of content and slop that we see. And I think that like brands that haven't focused on founder-led communications or founder-led, and brand forward content haven't seeing that it's really hard to win because there's also some tool that's probably being made with AI and like 320-year-olds who work 7 days a week that's going to like eat your lunch tomorrow. Brands that didn't build equity over the last few years are having to play catch up. And I'm fortunate that 3 years ago when I was hired, amidst, again, another kind of like challenging macroeconomic time, there was, our company kind of, grew smaller. We got smaller at the time and there was some challenges there. But ultimately, like, what we saw was through a play on efficiency and a real strong focus on like, how can we make sure we're showing up where our audience is? We want to talk to creative directors. We want to talk to marketing leaders. How can we make sure that we're building content for them where they are? Because we don't have enough, frankly, we don't have the budget and we aren't going to spend the money now to win them over with millions of dollars on Meta every month. So we made that bet. And I think, we raised a Series B in January, raised $35 million, and the company is humming. And now we are expanding, by the way, our market. We are adding marketing headcount because I don't think you can only do, you can't live on Bonnie Blue alone, but like fundamentally you need to have everything. But for the time it was, an intense test of a thesis that I think has proven out for us. So I feel really lucky, honestly, to be part of it.
Do you think it's the creative campaigns are what build up that brand equity, the emotion with people, right?
100%.
Yeah.
What else? Again, we're a company that does what 10,000 other companies. It's like cloud storage and creative collaboration. We're not the only show in town. We're also competing against major embedded, dominant global forces. You probably use Dropbox. You probably use Google Drive. Everyone uses Dropbox and Google Drive. How are you going to compete? We're not trying to like just win 10,000 people and like call it a day. We're trying to be the thing that everyone fucking uses. We firmly believe that one day every creative team will be on air. If you're going to be that insane and have that ambitious of a play, then like, why not go all the fucking way in on content?
Yeah. I love it. We have some, from my position at Dojo, we sort of work alongside B2B SaaS firms that work with our business model enables us to assist with the creation of content across teams and regions. I should probably say that to just provide a bit of context. I work with CMO, head of brand, head of comms, the PR team, your product marketing team, customer success, event and field marketing, talent, all of those teams. And we can support them with all of that content. But the businesses that do well, in my opinion, the ones that are really seeing success are the ones that have invested in that brand.
Yeah.
All of that other stuff, as you say, when you get to a certain size, it has a purpose. It's entirely necessary. But if you start a business and there's no emotional engagement, no one cares, no one knows who you are, no one has a reason to buy from you other than, you've got a service, but so does everybody else, then all of that other content doesn't really do an awful lot. With the businesses that have gone, hey, let's play around with creative, have seen success. Do you know Melissa Rosenthal, by the way?
I do.
You know her,
Yeah, very well.
I had a call with Melissa actually on this format about 4 weeks ago, and we were literally talking about this like revolving door of like marketing leaders and CMOs. They go into her business. I think her exact quote was like, they go in and they get the same haircut and then they leave. No one is like willing to do something differently. And I said, my point to her was, my pushback was, well, not pushback, but I sort of said to her, from my position, I have spent so much time with marketing leaders, sat and worked on like new creative, and then they've gone to get approval. And as soon as it goes up the chain, you've got like boards, other stakeholders, the creative gets whittled down until you're making the exact same thing that you had last year. So what's the point in even redoing it? And this brings me on to my next question, because I've kind of seen some of the things you've already pointed out about was it Shane? See, you're the founder you work with, right? So having that buy-in from the CEO. Yeah, let's jump straight into this next bit then. So obviously you've had this campaign recently that you guys have launched, has kind of blown up. It's got people talking. The Bonnie Blue campaign, kind of see it as a bit of a like surrealist, like art film almost in a sea of
Love that.
B2B sameness. So how the hell did this idea get through the door? And what everybody really would want to know, right, is what has been the actual impact since the launch of that campaign?
Yeah. I mean, I can answer both those. I think, how the campaign got through the door because very easily the door's open. That's it. That's how the campaign gets through the door. I wouldn't work at, I don't work in, I worked in the International Red Cross in Switzerland, and I worked in a Swiss bureaucracy for 4 years. I worked in the UN for 5 years. I've worked in big bureaucracies, and there's a reason I joined an early stage startup with 30 people 3 years ago. It's not because I got an extraordinary budget or because I was like, I'm being treated like, something special. It's because I work with a very small team that is committed to the same thing, takes it serious. Like, it's an adage, but it's real. We're just like, let's try shit, and let's try to break some shit. And like, that's a really exciting thing. If you ever worked in a big, cumbersome organization, bureaucracy, you know how hard it is to get stuff whittled down to make the same thing. I've lived that. That was not good for me mentally. It wasn't good for me emotionally. It wasn't good for me professionally. And so I only wanted to work and only want to work at places where it's not even a conversation. I posted this on LinkedIn. I sent Shane a text message. I woke up at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. I had watched the Lily Phillips documentary the night before on Twitter, which had come out where or OnlyFans act. I'd never heard of her before, but this OnlyFans star was crying about, it was really emotional about this sex scene she did. And I was like, it'd be so funny to do this and have her be the star of it. And say, instead she's upset because she just saw her record was just broken by Dropbox, who fucks 18 million people every day. It's the monthly active user with Dropbox. And that came to me, and I woke up and texted Shane, and I was like, I've got an insane idea. Like, you're either going to love it or you're going to fire me. And he's like, call me. And I called him, and he's like, great, do it. And that was it. And then, 2 months later to the day, that campaign was live. And in fact, again, to Shane's credit, his answer, find a CEO who does yes and, right? He was like, cool, and make a billboard, dude. Like, if we're going to do this, let's do this. And so, I don't really have much patience or interest in like, oh, there's like a protracted conversation with the board or legal or whatever. Like, your business is getting lapped. Like, you're already done. Like, if that's the conversation, it's not even like, what do we do to convince them? It's like, you're already fucked. I really believe that. Like,
the attitude, I guess, not just you, but the founder is sort of just do first and take for forgiveness afterwards. Don't ask for permission. Just get on with it.
Forgiveness from who? From what? For making who gives a shit? Like what? Because we've done something that people have been doing, by the way, to sell shit for hundreds of years. I just think it's like there's like a sense of like maybe like, oh my God, like it's like, but it's like at the end of the day, like, for what? People are so precious. They're like, oh my God, can you believe it? But at the end of the day, you have to try stuff. Otherwise, what are you doing? To Melissa's point or your point, like it's like you're just kind of wasting your time. And like, if I wanted to make boring shit, I'd go back to the UN, man. I could sit there and spend 6 months working on a campaign. But the reality is, like, even it used to be like, oh, I'd go sit in a FANG company, right? And like, I would have an idea and I'd spend 6 months. But now, like, you can't even do that. You'll just get fired, like, right? So, like, if you want to do cool stuff, I think you just need to try.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast recently, Alex Hormozy and Stephen Bartlett. I don't know if you know those guys or heard them, but both big social media presences and behind businesses, and they talked about this exact thing actually for quite a significant period of time, and they were just like, everybody is you can have they broke it down. They're like, everybody's got 20-60-20, so 20% of people are just going to be like evangelists, like they're just going to love you whatever you say. Like because they do, like they're bought into you, they love the brand, they love you, they love the idea. So even when you do something that's like not quite what they would like, they still like it. Then you're going to have 20% of people who just hate on you and hate the thing. And then there's and then there's just 60% of silence in the middle, right? But they could be buyers or whatever. Yeah. And the point that where they got to was like, you as a business or a brand, you have to get to that 20-60-20. Yeah. If you try to just be this 100, you don't actually have anything. The 100 is nothing. Right. So what you have to sort of say something, and you will create the divide, and then you will have some customers, and you won't have some others. But there are no customers in the middle world. It doesn't exist. And we found this even with Dojo, like when we're trying to reach out to brands, we were like, well, we want to be different with B2B SaaS. And we're like, well, okay, well, how do we say that? And then we were like, well, let's just say it. Let's just say we don't want to work with boring as fuck tech companies. We only want to work with ones that aren't. Some people don't like the language or the approach. Fine. They're not right for us. Let's go and work with the ones that are like, wicked. I resonate with this.
Yeah.
On the impact though, on this campaign, right? What's happened? Because when did it launch?
Launched 3 weeks ago to 10
Okay.
like 12 days ago, like March 12th.
And like, what's happened since?
I mean, it's by far the most, from an awareness perspective, it's by far the most viral thing we've ever made it, like no question. From an earned media angle, it's also by far, I mean, again, the most, I mean, we're in Italian press, we're in German press, we're all across the UK press, we're in American press. You know, we're seeing it on LinkedIn now through like the end of the thought leadership kind of like grind of things, right? This is the second podcast I've done on this today.
Okay.
People reached out to me a bunch on it, man. And I think that, you know, it's funny, but I think that it's also the third highest. It drove the third most visitors to our website. I don't know if it was this month or it's not ever. I think it was this month. Currently, you know, if you go to a lot of people go to dropthatbox.com. We have a billboard up in San Francisco. People are coming. Is it like going to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars of ARR? I don't know. Maybe at some point. I think I think attribution is complex, and I think things when it comes to awareness often get in SaaS. I think there's always a desire to be like, how many, you know, customers did Bonnie Blue bring? I can't tell you that today. It's only been live for 12 days, but I can tell you that.
But that's not really the point of brand awareness anyway, right?
We do other things that we try, you know, there's other parts. It's not like this is the only thing we do at Air. Every, you know, once a quarter, we like to try to do something that really puts us out of our comfort. You know, we did a protest of an Adweek conference that went super viral with a bunch of 80-year-olds holding up signs saying retire Dropbox. We did a campaign with the Rizzler that went crazy viral. Like, we're always trying to you know, we do a lot of work with Kareem Rama from Subway Takes. Like, we're always trying to do stuff that gets us out of the bubble of B2B SaaS. I think, you know, to the 20-60-20 point, I think, to me, the biggest concern, frankly, is that like 95% of stuff that everyone does is just, no one cares. It's just forgotten. It just goes out and like, people are like, great, and then that's it, right? Like, to me, the worst thing is not being hated or loved, it's being ignored. I love the posts on LinkedIn where people are saying how much they hate this campaign. I think it's fabulous. I want more of it. I love hearing people pontificate about how hideous and disgusting and wretched this guy must be. This campaign is like, it's great, man. Because not that I'm courting controversy, but I want people to talk about a B2B SaaS company, and that is fucking impossible. Like,
yeah.
No one's talking cloud. No one's debating cloud storage on LinkedIn. I mean, maybe they are, but like, it's boring.
That's a good point. I mean, like you say, it's gotten attention. It will create a divide, but divide is good.
That's great.
You obviously work with, not just in this role, but, you know, previous as well. You've worked with some of the kind of like sharpest B2B brands out there, I guess. This is more like your opinion, right? What are the early signs a brand is going to like move the market, you know, versus just blend into it? You know, you're obviously talking about Air and where you're competing, but this isn't necessarily about Air. This is more like your view on other brands.
Yeah, I think I think when you're in this space long enough, and, you know, you mentioned Melissa Rosen, like you kind of get to know, I mean, I've been in this space for 3 years. And so you kind of get to know a lot of the names, right? Like, you kind of see the same people, and you know who kind of matters, I guess, in this space, and who is like, you know, catching on or resonating and whatnot. And I think when you see certain people at certain organizations, when you know, like, this is like, you know, there's some people there are a lot of, I think, grifters in the space, by the way, like tons of marketing bullshit artists who like spew bullshit, and I haven't seen a single fucking thing they've ever done, but they have a lot of great advice. But those just people aside, there are a lot of really talented, really intelligent people like Melissa. When I watch them, and I think like, yeah, these are jockeys I would bet on. Like, you know, I don't even really care. I think for me, I don't even necessarily really care what the product is as much as I'm like looking at really dynamic marketers and communicators who I know are actually walking the walk when it comes to taking those risks. I think that is when I see people in that space, these are people I follow, I emulate, I look up to, I try to like, you know, like when Melissa Rosenthal, I don't have to like harp on her, but like, when she replies to someone else's post about this campaign the other week on LinkedIn, is like, this is fucking awesome. One, she's a super fucking great, she's an incredible marketer. She's also powerful woman in the industry, and that's a huge validation for me to know that, like, you know, this is not like a bro-y campaign. I'm trying to do this in a way intelligent, actually. It's like I'm trying to do a smart campaign here that's winning people over, not just like Bonnie Blue sex. It's like, no, there's like a point here. There's a thing we're trying to do, and seeing people like Melissa or many others like catch it. It's like, it's always kind of heartening to see, like, these are people that I really admire and respect.
You've diving a little bit sideways here, but you've worked in a bunch of different countries. Across the world. Now, I know my question is the US, but I know you are in Toronto. Are you Canadian?
I'm both. I'm dual. I lived in the States for like 30 years.
Fine. Okay. So I'm sat here in London, right? And I've been over to both Canada and the US a few times. And my background is sort of, you know, I'm in creative and video, but quite sort of sales driven as well, and have a sales background. I really notice when I cross the Atlantic that there is a real difference in like the confidence almost
100%.
stateside versus in the UK here. And our customer makeup now is probably 35-40% is US, and then 30% UK, and the rest of it is quite a lot in Germany and Scandinavia actually for this market. But UK and European, not just B2B SaaS, UK and European businesses, in my opinion, really still play it safe. Like loads of decks, not enough guts. Like, what is it going to take for brands over here to stop being boring and actually start winning attention like the best brands are in the US? What's your viewpoint on that?
I don't know. I mean, I've noticed it in Canada versus the US too. I think the US is, I think I left the US to move to Canada. And by the way, I just want to say, like, I like Canada a lot more than the US for what it's worth. I think it's a way lovelier place to live. That plug aside, US is where you go if you want to make shit, if you want to be famous, if you want your brand to be huge, and if you have hunger. Like, I just don't think the ambition is in Canada. And I went to grad school in London. I lived in London. I love London. I think London's fantastic. But like, the reality is, this is my personal opinion, but I think the reason why in Europe and UK and Canada it doesn't matter is because you can't make that much fucking money. You can get really rich in the US and you don't pay that much taxes. And so if you want to go and grind and become like whatever, you go to the US. It's really hard to find that elsewhere. I think a culture of competition and individuality in the US versus a culture of community and I'd say more of like societal care, right? We not to get political, but like we live in countries where there's free healthcare. In the US, you lose your job, you don't get, you're fucked. That matters. I think that impacts. So
ambition and success in the US is the word success is kind of more tied with cash or money.
And it's existential. It's do or die. If you don't make the US, you're fucked. You have no money. No one's going to help you. You're not going to college. College is too expensive. Like the UK and Canada and Europe still provide a safety net by which you are protected from the worst, right? It might be a failing safety net. Maybe NHS sucks. I don't know, like whatever, but like it exists. In America, it does not exist. And in fact, over the last 8 years, it has been completely eroded, right? Entirely. So like, I think America's like where you go, the US, where you go, like, you want to make your, any B2B, like if I was starting a B2B brand tomorrow, 100% I'm moving to New York. There's no question. But I'm raising 2 kids. I moved to Canada. Fuck the US. That's like my, and I would move to London too. By the way, if this place gets taken over by the US, I'm coming to England.
You're welcome. We'll go for a beer.
Cheers.
I agree with that. It is weird. You've raised some interesting points though there around sort of like the uni college healthcare. There's a real I grew up in the UK. I was quite fortunate. I think I was fortunate. I went to private schools. And there's an element here of thinking, okay, well, I've kind of like I've had a safety net, if you will, from like beyond just the NHS, but like my parents in education and. Get paid to go on holiday and don't have to take out loads of loans. There's an argument though, isn't there, like, well, but kids who go up in that environment, like they're spoon fed and then they don't do as much shit later because they don't have to. And I guess that kind of it's a bigger thing. We're saying maybe Canada, the UK, we all have a bit of a safety net. So is our ambition just cut somewhat? I don't know, but it definitely feels like when we're really kind of like looking to sort of like, push the bar, raise the bar, do something different. Inspiration is like, look to the US.
Always.
What are they doing? It's very rare that someone outside of the US is doing something that's worth taking note of. But where is HQ? US business. Cool. So you work remotely.
Shane and Tyler, the founders, are the 2 of the most emblematic American founders you'll ever meet. Left Stanford, started this business, hungry as hell. Both very different. I mean, Shane comes from an Indian American family. Tyler, a New York, kind of like from New York family originally. But they're both very similar in that they both have this drive and this hunger. It's not to say there aren't, obviously, like there are many startups all over Europe and the UK and Canada, but there is really something about the hustle and grind of Americans. And I don't think it's necessarily like positive either. Like I think we see it play out in a lot of really fucked up ways, but it is where the energy is. It is where the ideas are. As much as I hate to admit it, it's all there. I feel very much like an American here in Toronto, for better or for worse. But I think that I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I think all non-Americans feel uncomfortable building it up too much. But I mean, I was in New York in January, and I like to run, and then I like going to work, and there's I was there for like a handful of days, and I felt that like my work ethic doubled. I've just even just the coffee shops, everyone feels like charged. Crazy. but equally, I wouldn't want to live there for my whole life either.
And also, you're going to go on holiday. Dude, you know, the reality is you're going to go to Italy for August or whatever the fuck you're going to do. And these guys aren't. And there's a question of quality of life and what you're trading off.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, I wanted to see my children more and I wanted to be able to take them on a holiday. So it didn't make sense.
This is the thing. Yeah. Success isn't, well, success is whatever you think you want it to be. But it's a question I always ask everybody, like, what is success? You know,
Yeah.
and I don't think it is, as you say, it isn't just cash, right? It's like, it's all these other things.
No.
Jumping a little bit across to, or just want to dive into a little bit of your, like, sort of motivation and mindset from a creative perspective. When the well runs dry, so to speak, where do you go to get sharp again?
I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I try to, where do I go to get sharp? I don't know. I think that, I mean, I'm an internet person. I'm like, my brain is melted by the internet like everyone's is, but I think that I try to develop a pretty good sense of what cultural moments are coming and how they're being more, kind of mediated through this sort of ecosystem, and how and when we at my current company can find a way to be a part of it or engage with it in a way that makes sense. I don't think we need to engage in everything, but I try to look at and have a good understanding of, stuff is being consumed, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of boring. Like, I don't really have like a good other thing. I think there's an interesting thing about, like, I talk about being older now, but like aging in this industry where culture is no longer I'm not making culture anymore because culture often is being made and created ultimately by like a much younger cohort of people that are building it out. And now I think probably are your TikTok and kind of short form video or like the place where that culture kind of comes out from. It used to be that Twitter was the place that culture was driven by, but I think Twitter's kind of become a bit more gated or sort of like its own weird now, like kind of politicized pocket. So it's less so there, but I'm from a different era of like winning on Twitter, right? With my last job, that was how we used to win. Now it's a different space. So I try to like really pay attention to what is happening on the internet and how other people's algorithms are impacting it and where the interesting things are coming from, and trying to find inspiration from those folks and move out of a creation role, because again, I think I'm kind of too old to create, and really work with like people that are 15, 20 years younger than me and see ways that I can help build their careers and like kind of learn from them equally, honestly.
Is there anybody, you obviously mentioned the internet, is there anybody specifically that you kind of follow or look to for inspiration?
Yeah, I maybe it's like a lot of the similar ones, but like I think Rachel Carton on Substack is fabulous. I think Emily Sundberg is fabulous on Substack. I like Taylor Lorenz. I worked with her. I like her a lot. I think she's really intelligent. I think Ryan Broderick from Garbage Day. These are all kind of things I try to read fairly regularly. I mean, I think what's really interesting is that what I don't read every day is Adweek or Ad Age or DigiDay or It's Nice That. Like I'm less interested in, as I think most people are, about kind of what the corporate, like any kind of like legacy media or corporate media is telling me about things, and more following these people who I think are kind of cherry picking interesting things that are happening on the internet. Yeah, and then I'm just like a slave to the algorithms, like the rest of us, I suppose.
Some final short quick fire questions. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice I've ever been given. I mean, like, just do shit you care about. I don't know. I think that's also a huge privilege, obviously. But if you're able to do this kind of dumb work that we do, right? Like, we're not doctors and we're not saving lives, but we're able to do this kind of like thing, which is like really fun, right? Like, it's a really fun thing to do, to get to be creative for a living. And I think, again, it's a waste of time to do it if you don't really feel like. I don't ever want to put out stuff that sucks, like I don't want, like, we do, like I do, I'm sure we all do, we all put out stuff that kind of sucks, but it's like I'd rather not, and I'd rather just do stuff I really care about, because I think it'll resonate, not because it's like a narcissistic thing, but it's like I think if I put that love into it, then I think that it'll hopefully resonate. And I've seen usually time and again that stuff is the stuff that does, and I try to keep doing that. I try to push for that. Yeah.
I've mentioned this question already, but so now it's for you. Finish the sentence. Success is.
I mean, look, I'm like a softie now because I'm like a dad. I have like kids, so it's really just the ability to be able to. I mean, it's cheesy, but it's to be able to not have to worry about, if I can send my kid to some camp, or, the ability to be able to provide for my family and also be there with them as well. It's actually like, it's less, for me, it's not. So I'd really like to win more shit, and I'd like my shit to be more, I mean, doesn't everyone want to always like have their shit be recognized and lauded? But success for me ultimately is that my family is happy and healthy.
That's pretty much brings that to a wrap. Ariel, really appreciate all of your time.
Oh, thank you so much.